Hi, guys. It
Hi.
is Julia,
And Kitty Cat.
and we are here with another episode of Better Than Sex, our podcast where we try to figure out what exactly is better than sex.
Nothing.
Nothing, but we still try.
Yeah.
We found some really fun stories and topics to talk with you guys this week. One thing I do want to bring up is if you are online tomorrow around 6 p.m. Pacific, we're going to be doing a video launch for Pinups on Tour on their Facebook page, as well as a talk back with the cast. We were able to film a video at the world famous Las Vegas sign. So we're releasing that tomorrow.
It's very exciting, and the footage looks amazing.
Yeah, it's also, it's one of the benefits of the fact that we've been so empty for the last couple of months, right, is that we've been able to take advantage of some of Vegas's really unique landmarks that are normally filled with tourists. So we had the sign to ourselves for about 30 minutes right at sunrise, and we filmed a great video with the Swing It Girls featuring Becky Fullington. And they're going to be online tomorrow to talk about that after we premiere the video.
Awesome. And when is the video being prepared?
6 p.m. on June 10th, Wednesday, June 10th, on our Facebook page at Pinups on Tour.
And that's Pacific Standard Time.
Pacific Standard Time, yeah. So if you're East Coast, it's 9 p.m.
Awesome.
Or adjust the math accordingly. So,
coast to coast. Coast to coast.
Coast to coast, exactly. That's one nice thing about all these virtual shows and everything is you get to kind of premiere everything to your whole audience at once.
That's true. I'm fine with everything except for Arizona. Whenever I have a phone meeting or a Zoom with somebody in Arizona, I say, you need to set the time and just tell me what it is in whatever time zone I am in, because it just is so confusing to me.
They don't, is that because they don't observe daylight savings?
They don't, and if I remember correctly, half of the state, it's like even parts of the state are not 100% on board. So I'm always like, I never remember what it is. So anytime I talk to somebody from that state, I'm like, just you figure it out, please.
There's a few states like that where like 3 or 4 cities in the state will be one time zone and the rest of the state will be the rest. Yeah, Idaho. Yeah. Is it Indiana is like that too?
It might be Indiana. I just went through Indiana once. You would probably know because you've been there.
Either way, it gets very confusing when you're driving, especially when you have a show that's in the same state and you're like, of course I'm in the same time zone. Why wouldn't I be in the same time zone?
It's like the first time we toured Texas. Do you remember? And
yes.
Yes.
Yes, we lose. I mean, I think the first time we toured, I forgot about time changes just overall. I just didn't even think like, oh, we're going to lose an hour or two driving. In retrospect, I should have known that, but I guess you don't think of those things. And so far, we've never missed a show from being late.
Which is amazing because remember, like, there are always situations where you're like, you get to the point where you're like, oh my God, are we going to make it through this? In one way or another. And then like, you're like, nope, we made it. We're fine.
Yeah. Everyone usually just does their makeup in the car, moves real quick when we get to the venue. Sometimes you have to hold the supporters outside for a little bit, but we've always been able to make it work. So here's hoping that streak keeps up once we're allowed to tour again.
Exactly. Have you talked to anybody that has like officially something on the books, or is it still kind of open to like whenever?
We have some things, like I said, we haven't canceled yet. I just don't know when when we're going to be able to do it. And, honestly, I'm not pushing it because I think that when we get back on the road, we'll get back on the road at the right time. And until then, we'll wait it out with the rest of the world. Though Vegas is opening up this week. That's one of the reasons we filmed in front of the Vegas sign is because we knew we wouldn't have too much longer before the tourists come flooding back. Vegas opened up and some of the entertainment is coming back, which is that people are bringing back bands and lounges with limited capacities, of course. So Vegas is really kind of somebody said that they went to the casino and it was like a Saturday night the other night.
Really?
Yeah, it was just popping.
It's so interesting. I was running errands today, and the Starbucks right next to the pool supply store was open. So I went in and like they had the counter right in front of the door. So like you could only go in to order and the rest of it. And I was like, am I allowed to wait in here while you make my coffee? And they're like, no, you're supposed to leave. But they ended up letting me chit chat with them anyway. But like, I was like, it's so confusing right now. That's the thing, is like, it's so different. And like, there's no uniformity yet at the moment. And that's what is kind of funny.
Yeah. I need clear instructions on what I'm supposed to do at all times when I'm out in public. I need signage. I need things on the floor because I don't know. And every business has a different protocol and I don't want to get yelled at. And I'm worried about touching the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. But yeah, I don't know. I every part of the country is opening up different, but Vegas, it's really starting to feel like almost like life is normal, which is a little, I'm hesitant. I don't want to say like it makes me scared because I'm not scared, but we were practicing something that was working effectively for months and we just aren't going to do that anymore, which we'll see what happens.
I mean, who knows? Like, you know, we could wake up tomorrow and they figured out the miracle vaccine, or like we could go back to social distancing more. It'll be exciting to see which one plays out.
We'll see what happens.
Right? You know, like I have a friend who we keep joking that Godzilla is going to show up. It's just a question of when. So.
Right. I mean, that would be like the icing on the cake right now.
Right. So, I don't know. It's kind of fun. It's like, pick your genre. Which genre do you want to live in?
Well, I think it's interesting how a lot of performers are adapting to quarantine, which kind of leads us into our first story, which is curbside drag shows.
Yes, this was fun. This happened actually this was in May, so it's not that far, but as things are opening up, you know, this was a little bit back in our past. And it's drag queens in Calgary, and they got together and started doing drag shows in people's front yard, which I thought was amazing. Like they were really pushing for Mother's Day, birthdays, anniversaries. You know, it was like a couple of drag performers then ended up like bringing on a ton of drag performers onto their the roster. And I just thought it was like such a fun, silly way to kind of like make something crazy, playful.
Yeah, I think it's so fun, and it gives performers a chance to perform, which they obviously need. We obviously need that outlet. Right. And they do it in a safe way. One of the things I thought was interesting in the article is that they mentioned that they would take special requests, they would customize it, they would really make it your own if you wanted. Which, you know, I don't know how much it costs. It doesn't say in the article, but right. I bet it's pretty reasonable.
I think it's probably pretty reasonable. You know, I found like that most things that people went online and did Zoom with, usually it was half the price that it normally was. So like I would assume there would be some kind of a quarantine. You know, it's not like you're paying for a show in a club in front of 1 million people, you know?
Yeah.
Because like how long can you do a drag show in front of somebody's front yard anyway? It's probably like a 3 to 5 minute like.
It says that it's 1 to 3 performers that do about 2 acts each. So, you know, depending on how many, I feel like if you had 3 performers doing 2 acts each, that would be a very long front porch drag show.
That would be, especially in the middle of the day, because you got to remember they probably want to do it during the day because they need the light for you to see them.
That's true.
Yeah. So
I've seen some other performers doing similar pop-up things. The lead singer in Fantasy here, her and her husband, who's also a musician, they drove around Vegas doing a pop-up show that like made the local news here and all this stuff because she was just sick of not performing. So I think people are really kind of getting antsy to get out there and entertain.
And just get dressed up and be different people. I am a member of this Facebook group, which I don't think I've mentioned on this podcast, but I absolutely adore, it's called Dress Up for the Bin. And I believe it started in England, but anywhere that like people reference the trash can as the bin. And it was this idea that you would get dressed up like in full evening wear to take your trash down to the curb because your trash goes out more than you do.
I've seen that.
Oh my God, it's just so much fun because people like, on their birthday parties, like they dress up in these like outfits and they're like pulling the trash can, and it's just like silly and fun and super playful and just like a fun laugh, in my opinion.
It gives people an excuse to, I mean, honestly, we all just need an excuse to dress up and do things these days.
Right.
I actually went to, the first time I've been to a friend's house since all this happened last night. I went over to a girlfriend's house to have dinner with her and like the people she lives with. And it was so funny because like I wanted to dress up. I wanted to wear a full dress. I wanted to do my makeup. Because I was like, I don't get to go out. I don't get to do things anymore. So it's a good thing, even if it's just taking out the trash.
Exactly. Since moving my podcast location into my bedroom, it's guaranteed that my bed is made the day of the podcast. What? I know. Very fancy. And I always look at it like 20 minutes before we start. I'm like, gotta make my bed. Gotta make my bed.
Well, it's true though. You don't want everyone seeing, it's like I always try to make sure everything's like clean within the proximity of the camera because you don't want people seeing your shame out there for the world.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, probably most people's apartments are cleaner than they've ever been in their lives because they're not like running in and out going places.
Well, and you're staring at it. I mean, I'm getting a little, even though projects are starting to pick up, I still get a little stir crazy. I'm like, I can't sit in mess if I have nothing to do.
Right.
So it's like I have to clean if I'm here doing nothing. To where, yeah, like you said, when you're busy, you just go about your day and leave the dishes in the sink.
Right. You're like, oh, I'll get to it when I have time. Yeah.
And now that's not an excuse.
No.
We all have plenty of time.
We do. I know. I think I find it funny. Like I was chatting with a fellow artist yesterday, and we were talking about performing, and he was like, "Well, I'm hoping for August because like a lot of the performers are going to be the last people to roll back into their jobs."
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny as the rest of the world like picks up in terms of like opening restaurants and that kind of stuff. Like,
I agree. I think August that's our kind of target zone-ish as well. Mm-hmm. It seems realistic compared to June, but I mean, like I said, there are people that are throwing events here in Vegas starting in June. So there are performers starting to go back to work. But the big shows, the shows that cost a lot of money to produce every night,
right?
They're not coming back until at least August is what they're saying, maybe even September, because you just have to have a certain number of butts in the seats to make it work.
I mean, and truthfully, that's the truth. That's the truth. That's probably the case with the restaurants anyway. Like, one of the things about restaurants is they work on such small margins. Most of entertainment does compared to like, I don't know, concrete. I don't know. I always use concrete as an example because it's an industry that's
a good business.
It is like, I mean, living in Vegas, World of Concrete's over 100,000 people go to that convention, which the first year I lived in Vegas, like blew my mind. Because every stripper was like, oh, it's World of Concrete. I'm like, what? They're like, no, it's like one of the biggest conventions. And I'm like, oh, okay.
You would never even guess it sometimes what is.
Yeah.
But concrete's everywhere when you think about it. Like when you told me that, I was like, that kind of makes sense. I mean, concrete is everywhere.
It's true. It is. It's one of those, I mean, it's on your road or your sidewalks, like everywhere. So buildings.
Yeah, we'll see when we get our conventions back here in Vegas. That might be a little bit. I mean, it might be a while. I'm curious to see when we're going to be able to have events again. That's, I guess, my thing. I don't know if any states are allowing events of more than 50 people right now.
Yeah.
Maybe like the South Dakotas or something are,
Right.
but Wyoming, exactly. But I think most are really, really limiting the amount of people that are allowed at events right now, because it's just such a, I mean, remember we were talking to the woman who does the vampire balls. Remind me of her name.
Isabella.
Isabella, yeah. When we were talking to her, you know, she talked about how so many people got sick just because, and her event was really early in this thing. So it just shows how contagious it is. So
yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see. Who knows? That's the adventure of life.
Right. One thing I'll say, one group that has been affected by COVID and is doing a lot of fundraising efforts right now is the Burlesque Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yes. So we want to give them a quick shout out, because if you have a little bit to give, if you've ever liked watching any of our Legends videos or performance BHOF videos that we've done, please consider donating to the organization, because they have really suffered during this COVID crisis because they haven't been able to open their doors at the museum or hold their annual fundraiser.
Right. So the Burlesque Hall of Fame is like the only museum dedicated to the world of burlesque. And they have a somewhat smaller museum in the arts district of Vegas, but they do a big fundraiser every year. And we actually interviewed the artistic director, executive director. And this was when we were at BurlieCon in Seattle. And do you remember having the conversation with him? What if there's a crisis and we can't do the fundraiser?
He was like, we would be screwed.
You would be. I absolutely remember him having this conversation like 4 or 5 years ago with him. And I don't know if it's on camera, if you go back to his interview or not, but like, he's like, this is something we got to figure out, because what if something happens? So when this happened, the pandemic, they've been doing a lot of fundraisers that have gotten pushed back due to some national events, but they're still in the docket where they're having performers from all over the world do online fundraisers to help, them cover the costs that they usually make all their money once a year.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing a lot of organizations are facing. I mean, I know with Pinups we make most of our money in the summer, so we're kind of in a similar boat, but not to the extent. I think it's something like 70 or 80% of their annual budget.
Oh, yeah, it was a huge number.
Yeah, comes from this one weekend. And they're not a massive nonprofit. Most of their money goes directly into infrastructure or facilities. So they really need that money to operate. So if you do have anything to give, we made a donation. Workin The Tease did make a donation a couple weeks ago.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's where we started this all. How could we not?
It is true. We did start this all with going to BHOF and seeing all it is. And it is really a fun experience for anyone who wants to look at some of the videos in the past. Like, they have the Legends Night where they have the older burlesque performers come back and have their shining. You have to be over 65 to be on the stage, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like I know there's some discrepancy over what constitutes a legend.
Right.
I don't fully know the qualifications, but yeah, it's somewhere around there, 65.
Yeah, and I mean, it's these women who were quite the mavericks back in their day, and some of them kill it. They kill it in their videos. And these are women who are in their 70s and 80s. And I remember we saw someone perform in their 90s, and she was amazing.
Yeah, Dee, right? Dee was 92?
Yeah, Dee, yes.
Yeah. DeMille. You can go online, you can see, and we did some interviews with these women. BHOF has some really gorgeous videos of their performances as well. If you go to their YouTube channel, it's worth kind of falling down the rabbit hole for a little bit and learning about these women that started the art form for us.
Yeah. So I recommend it. Make your $10, $20, $30 donation.
Yes, exactly. Or if you can do more. You can always donate more.
I know. I always say latte money. Like, because I always feel like latte money is an acceptable amount of money. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
if everybody donated $5, they'd be fine.
Yeah, $5 don't even get you a latte at a lot of places in LA.
I know, especially in Vegas. You want a latte in Vegas, you might even spend over $10 on it.
If you want a good latte.
Yeah. But like even like when you go to like the Starbucks and in Vegas, because there's the Starbucks price and then there's the casino price on top of it. And it's like it's very common to spend like $9 or $10 on a latte. But usually at that point you're so hungover anyway, you just want that. Or you so need coffee to stay awake. Whatever it is, you're like, I don't care.
You're like, this coffee is a necessity, not an option right now. Right, exactly. I need it.
Yeah.
But speaking of other burly history, we've been doing some more research into the fabulous, wonderful, sexy women of history. And this week we decided to highlight Josephine Baker.
Yes, who was amazing. You know, overall, she was the gist on Josephine Baker was she was born in America. And she pretty much was like cast aside for quite a long time. And then she decided, you know, she like kind of picked up in New York City and was performing at the Plantation Club. And then she moved over to Paris because Paris was obsessed with America. And they just went crazy over her.
Yeah, that's really where she got her fame. She was in nightclubs and famous theaters. And she really came like the toast of the Parisian scene.
Right. And she also was known for doing something called the danse sauvage, which is like a native dance. And she would do it with only a feather skirt and then later a banana skirt.
Let me see if I can find a photo of that. It's a super iconic image of her in the banana skirt. Let's see if this is it.
Yeah.
There we go.
And she also had like a very stylized way of dancing. It was like very Africanized in it. It was like, I would classify it as like Western African from the few African dance classes I've taken. But like it was definitely something different in France, you know, it was something that was completely radical because it was so different. But also the fun things that she did along the way, she was a spy. You know, she entertained the troops in like Africa and the Middle East during World War II. And she would smuggle messages in her sheet music and sometimes her underwear. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're an international performer, people aren't going to be questioning why you're traveling around. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Cover. Yeah. So you should definitely, and the nice thing about it is there is a wealth of information on her on the internet when you start looking at it. In videos, you can watch old videos, see the doodads and all that stuff. Yeah, she was a pretty amazing woman. She holds a really special place, not only in kind of vaudeville dance culture, but she also was an activist in her time. She worked towards non-discrimination clauses in her contracts. Yep. She also insisted that venues integrate their audiences, which was really, really rare in Paris at the time. But she didn't want to perform in an audience that wasn't integrated. Yeah, which is completely understandable if you're a person of color. Like, I could understand why that would be an important thing. Yeah, and during the 1950s, Baker frequented the United States to lend her support to the civil rights movement. She was a part of many demonstrations and boycotts, and led her face in fame to that cause in the mid-century. So she's a pretty amazing woman that was definitely ahead of her time in a lot of ways, not only artistically, but also culturally. Yeah. Yeah, so you should definitely Wikipedia her. Yes, we love Wikipedia. Donate to Wikipedia too. You should. Yeah. Think of us all kinds. Whenever they ask for that $1,
Whenever they ask for that dollar, give it to them.
Yeah, you know, the banners on it, and they said, we only ask for money like twice a year. Please donate $1 or whatever it is. So
yeah, and I'm usually like, that's true. I do use you an awful lot, Wikipedia. So it's only fair.
Right, exactly. Not that I've actually ever donated to Wikipedia. So I might have to next time the banner pops up.
Yeah, now your guilt will get you now that we've talked about it.
I know. I'm shaming myself on streaming right now.
Well, there's so much to stream. So yeah. I keep thinking I've hit the bottom of the barrel, and then I find a new show. And I did watch The Great, by the way.
Oh,
I got
did
to
you
that.
enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. It was I'm looking forward to the next season. You can kind of see where it's going, you know? Yeah. I mean, you kind of also know where it's going because of history.
Yes. A lot of the tales I know of Catherine the Great come from, once again, the John Green book. What is that? It's not The Masters of Sex. What is it?
The Art of Seduction.
The Art of Seduction. That's it. I was like, The Power of Sex. I'm naming off sex books. None of them are actually that book, but The Law of Seduction. Are the Rules of Seduction? Law of Seduction.
Art of Seduction.
The Art of Seduction. The Art of Seduction. They tell a lot of Catherine the Great stories. So the ones that I've known so far have come from that.
We could all learn a thing or two from her. But it's a great show. Check it out on Hulu. It has Ella Fanning in it, who is amazing.
Yep.
She's really great.
And Nicholas Hoult was fantastic too, I thought. So
yeah. So it's well cast, well acted. It's a good show to stream and dive into. It has enough episodes to keep you busy for at least a couple days.
Yeah. I am still deep in the Vampire Diaries. Very exciting. Season 5, I believe there's 8 seasons. 8 or 9. One of them. I don't know. It's just amazing. It is like such an amazing soap opera thing that I don't even understand it half the time, because it's like I can only imagine the writers in the room trying to go through this, because it's like this magical thing like thwarts this magical thing, which thwarts this magical thing, and I'm like
you're like, sure, yeah.
Sure, just keep taking off your clothes.
Let's just dig deeper. Let's go deeper. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. By the time you get, I got into, the show Vikings. I think it's History Channel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I've never watched it, but I know of it.
Okay. So it's a show you start watching, you can watch it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And the thing is, the story changes, yes. But the story doesn't really change. It's violence, it's sex, it's Viking stuff. It's the same thing. So it's like you almost like can pop in and out, not really knowing what's going on, and still be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
violent sex.
I sometimes feel that way with the Vampire Diaries. It's interesting because I was talking to my mom about Westworld, which is another show that there's a lot of twists and turns, and they just finished season 3, which I really enjoyed, and is very different than the first 2 seasons because, like most people know this, but the 3rd season, they go into the real world. So the first 2 seasons are set at the park. The next season, they go in the real world. But the one thing that I have to complain about is that the first season of Westworld, there was so much sex. Everybody was fucking everybody on that show. Nobody got laid in the 3rd season. One scene with nakedness where like it was people like standing there as like, prostitutes you could bid on, but other than that there was like nothing. And I was like, what?
You're like, I had gypped.
I did. I felt gypped. I was like, dude, it's like True Blood. Like there are certain shows that like if you come out of the gate with like a lot of titties and nudity and like blood and sexiness, people are going to expect it going through the whole show. Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly. So they toned it down and you're disappointed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a very good season otherwise, but they could have
needed more tits.
More tits. Yeah.
Speaking of tits, you found the most adorable video. I'm going to pull it up right now if you want to tell people about it real quick. Without ruining it. Just give a basic idea.
I'm going to tell where I came this from because, like, I am a funny girl with a lot of different Facebook groups, and this one is it's a educational sex group in Australia that somehow I got involved with at some point. And, you know, you get like the posts every once in a while. And in New Zealand, they did a campaign, I'm assuming in like the social sciences department of the government. And it was to let parents know that the kids these days are using porn to learn about sex. And hey, guess what? Porn isn't what real sex is like.
Yes. So with that,
yes,
let's watch the video and then we'll talk about it.
Hiya, Eric. We're here because your son just looked us up online, you know, to watch us.
Matt, darling, there's some people here to see you. So he watches you online?
Yeah, you know, on his laptop.
iPad, PlayStation.
His phone, your phone.
Smart TV, projector.
Yeah, anyway, we usually perform for adults, but your son's just a kid. He might not know how relationships actually work. We don't even talk about consent, do we? No, we just get straight to it.
Yeah, and I'd never act like that in real life.
Nah. Hey, Maddie. You all right?
Okay, Sandra, stay calm. You know what to do here. All right, Maddie. It sounds like it's time to have a talk about the difference between what you see online and real-life relationships. No judgment.
Many young Kiwis are using porn to learn about sex. Keep it real online. Get help and advice at keepitrealonline.govt.nz.
I think that's the cutest, like, way to approach the subject on this, because it's not saying porn's a negative thing.
No, and
it's saying it has to be in the right context.
Right. It's like the porn stars are portrayed in quite a positive light, in my opinion. It's just they're like, hey, you still need to talk to your kids about sex because, like, this is not the way they should probably learn about sex.
Yeah, my favorite part was they're like, no talk of consent. We just get right down to it. Like, and then the male guy's like, oh, I would never do that in real life.
Oh my god! And he's such like a great visual image in himself. Like, he's just like I don't know, he's like The Rock. He's not even like a real person, you know, in terms of his beefcakeness. So.
Yeah, and I think like just like on a more like serious note, to think that kids aren't looking at porn is kind of naive, especially considering they all are carrying around computers in their hands.
Absolutely. Like, I was at a family, I was at Thanksgiving with some family, and somehow we got on the subject of Pornhub, which with that side of the family was not like the coolest thing to do. Because like, you know, sometimes I start to be, I find it very interesting that certain parts of this country, we're the same country, but like have different beliefs just based on where you're raised. And this family's in the South. So I was like, oh, like, what, you know, asking questions. And like my, one of my family members was just appalled with the things I was suggesting, even though they're like so commonplace by my nieces and nephews who are in high school, you know, because she couldn't fathom that they were doing this.
You're like, I'm not trying to like blow the lid off your world, but like, of course they are. I remember back when like internet was dial up and you had one family computer, I looked at porn, not so much because I was like using it to masturbate, but more just like curiosity.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad like somehow saw like the history or whatever, but he assumed it was my brother and not me. So like I didn't get in trouble for it or anything. And then I think like my dad was like too awkward to talk to my brother about it. So it just kind of got swept under the rug as things do in the Nichols household. And but I like, and that was back when it was like it wasn't like you're carrying it around with you. So I imagine that most kids are, I mean, I have a sister who is going to be 13, and it's interesting because she says she doesn't like when sexy stuff comes on TVs or films or whatever, but she's also pretty desensitized to it because it's in so much of the content that is available. And honestly, like, my parents aren't really good about monitoring what she watches. So,
Right.
you know, she sees a lot of stuff. And even though, like, it makes her uncomfortable, she still sees it. And I mean, I just can't imagine that if I had that resource of being able to look it up and see what sex looks like when I started thinking about sex, I have to imagine I would have done that.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, sex, I think we've kind of shown through the course of like the people we've interviewed on the show and the stories we've talked about, sex is like a wheelhouse of things. And like, depending on where you're raised, the society, your family, you get a little bit of that wheelhouse, but then it's like, as you grow up, you kind of explore the other elements of the wheelhouse, but that takes time. Like, you know, porn is nice because it in some ways allows people that might not be able to see stuff, you know, like if you grew up in a family where, I don't know, one of your parents died and the other parent never remarried, you wouldn't know what affection was, right? You know, because you wouldn't see it, you know? Not to say that porn's the end all be all, but you know, it's one of those things that people do learn a lot from.
Yeah, I think what the ad was highlighting was that it's not a realistic picture of sex necessarily. And if you can enjoy it and understand this is a heightened version of this experience, right? Entertainment version of this experience, it's going to set you up with better expectations and allow you, I think, to probably treat your partners better. I mean, I think we've all had sex with somebody who were like, oh, whoa, you've watched too much porn in your life. You know, where you're like, what are you doing? That's not even enjoyable. That's just some trick you saw on a movie once. And
I want to know what this trick is now. Because
but it's like, it's multiple tricks. It's like guys like watch these things and they think they're porn stars because it's what they get in their heads. And you're like, well, honestly, like the basic mechanics of what makes sex good isn't that complicated, usually speaking.
No, and it's funny because it's, at least for a girl, it's a lot different than what porn conveys it to be.
Yeah. Like a guy pounding you really hard might be fun for like a second or two, but beyond that, it's just not.
Right.
And you might act like it is because he's enjoying it so much, but you're acting. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, sexuality is a very interesting thing. And there's so many layers to an onion, you know. It really is true. And some of the things that you end up being turned on with, like I remember reading Dita Von Teese's book, the one which was like burlesque on one side and then it was like fetish on the other, and you would flip it. And the fetish side, she talked about this, she was all dressed up in her outfit and she was in the country and she was buying some champagne, and there was a dad with a little kid in front of her in line, and she's like in some country market, and the little kid turned around and started staring at her because she was like this beautiful woman. And then the dad like chastised him and told her to turn around, the little boy, like not look at the painted lady, so to speak. And she's like, and just wait, like 15 years from now, that's the kind of thing he's going to be turned on by because he was told not to do it.
Right? Don't look at her. She's bad.
She's the bad one.
She's the bad one. Well, we love bad women around here.
Yeah, and really, there aren't any bad women. There's just confident women. There's just women that are willing to say what they want.
Right? You know what I mean? You get the thing is, after a certain point in your life, you're like, it's just easier to say what I want than to deal with what I don't want.
Yeah.
I
know that. Yeah. And I think that people really find honesty very attractive because it shows confidence after a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think, and that's the great thing about a lot of the guests that we have on the podcast is that they're so like honest with themselves, and we get to learn about this thing that while it might not be our thing, like them being true to themselves, and it has opened up a whole new world to them, a business to them, a community to them. You know? We actually have a fun guest joining us on Thursday. We have Dr. Wendy, who came up with Teddy Love. We'll talk about it a lot more with Dr. Wendy, but it is a how would you describe it? A adult pleasuring teddy bear?
Yes, that would be a good way to explain it. You know, it kind of anyone who's interested in, I'm going to get these words wrong, but like, you know, like the furry people, like people who are into like fur play or like child's play when it comes to sexuality. You know, like people who watch
like
role play, and also like their porn is based on their childhood favorite TV shows, like that kind of stuff. This is like the perfect hit the bullseye for that type of group of people.
So
I mean,
it's fun.
It is a teddy bear whose nose is a vibrator.
Yeah, that's the long and short of it. Dr. Wendy will be here to talk to us about that and all other kinds of stuff that she does in the kinky BDSM sensual world. We met her a couple years ago at the AVNs, and it'll be nice to catch up with her. If you want to find more of our podcast, you can do that in iTunes, Stitcher, or on our website, which is wttburlesque.com. You can find us on all the social medias at WTT Burley. And I think that's it. That's all I have for this week, Kat.
Yeah, that's all I have for this week, too. You know, we'll find some more stuff to talk about on Thursday with Dr. Wendy.
Yes, I'm excited. I always love having our guests learning about their worlds. And honestly, Teddy Love is a super interesting product. If you want to Google it before next week's episode, feel free. But otherwise, we will see you guys on Thursday, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.